So today I'd like to talk about our new update and the current events section in that update. And I'd like to pick a few articles which we are quoting in our current events section. And the first one has to do with, again, Brexit. But what Brexit is going to accomplish, quote unquote. And this was an article by Handelsblatt Global, dated November 26. And of course, it's written from obviously a continental European German perspective, so we got to understand that. But it's still very interesting what they say in here. They say last week, German and French defense ministers quietly announced contracts for further cooperation. Could Brexit and the impending departure of the EU's biggest military spender, i.e. the UK, finally be causing the Germans to pick up their guns? Brexit may be sad, but it has had one positive outcome for the other 27 nations in the European Union. Again, that's the European perspective. It has brought them closer together politically. There may soon be another sector that can celebrate more togetherness, thanks to the British decision to leave the EU, the defense industry. And then they point out that up until now, Britain has been very careful in vetoing any attempts to create a European army, but now they are gone. They can't prevent it anymore. And it says in this article, the Brexit can finally push the Germans into arming themselves better. And then they're talking about some agreements which have been made between German and French companies. And so the French companies will take the lead in the air, while the Germans will do so on the ground. And more collaboration and cooperation is expected. Interesting that the Times wrote on November 28 that German public support for an increase to defense spending has risen sharply over the past year, amid concerns that the country can no longer depend on the US for protection. You see, when I grew up in Germany, and all these years having had close contact with German friends, relatives, brethren, Germany has been deeply pacifistic overall. They did not want to get involved in anything militarily. That has now drastically, and I mean drastically, changed. And it's also interesting the different perspective between how Americans and how Germans look at developments. Politico wrote on November 26 that, according to a new study, 7 in 10 Americans said the relationship between the two countries was good, while 73% in Germany said it was bad. And there's some more statistics, but here's another one which is interesting. Most Germans, 72%, said that they want to be more independent from the United States. 51% of Americans opposed the initial tariff, but in Germany, 78% supported increasing tariffs on imported US products in response to American tariffs on German goods. So you see the difference of perspective, and that will be becoming more and more obvious and prevalent as time goes on. We produced a new Standing Watch program titled, "How Will the New Russian-Ukrainian Conflict Be Solved?" And the answer is not in the way most expect. The Russian blockade of the Azov Sea and the capture of 3 Ukrainian ships and sailors caused the United States and the EU to condemn Russia for violating international law. But Russia denies this and couldn't care less. Even though Ukraine is asking NATO and the EU, including Germany, for further economic sanctions and military intervention, this does not seem to be likely. What then is going to happen? History from World War II and the Bible gives us answers. Now, I'm not going to go into what I am discussing in the Standing Watch, but I'd like to add a few more news which was revealed yesterday and today. Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer. Now, you probably never heard that name before. She is the General Secretary of the Christian Democratic Party, which of course is led by Angela Merkel for the time being, suggested that Russian ships coming from the Sea of Azov could be barred from European and American harbors. But then we have former German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel, according to NTV, stated that Ukraine was willing to draw Germany into a war with Russia. And they don't like it. Now, an interview was published by Vladimir Putin, which was actually published by the Russian outlet RT, but it was published in German, in which Putin accused the Ukrainian leader, Petro Poroshenko, of provocation. Now, that's nothing new, but here's the interesting part. Putin also said that the Russian and Ukrainian peoples will always remain brotherly people. And that's interesting because the Bible tells you so, that Russia and Ukraine will combine their forces and fight against Europe. Most people don't believe that. Most people believe today that it is going to be the Ukraine which is going to be part of the EU. The Bible tells you something completely different. I gave this program also to the German audience, and the English program so far had about 200 plus views. The German program so far had about 3,000 plus views. But not everybody liked it. Not everybody liked it. Quite a few who don't like it, either pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian, I don't know who they are. But we can't care about that because this is what's prophesied, and that's what we are going to explain. Now, in light of the debacle, you probably heard about this. Mr. Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, of course, right now is in Buenos Aires in Argentina for the G20 summit, and he has refused to talk with Vladimir Putin, and also actually with the leader of Saudi Arabia because of that debacle which is going on. And so, as usual, the American press has hardly anything to say about the G20 summit. The European press has a lot to say about it, and I have an article here by the Daily Mail, which was published this morning, and they point out that there was supposed to be a press conference this evening, and President Trump canceled that. He said in deference to the announced death of former President Bush. But this article, which is of course an English paper, is saying that he probably also canceled it because he wouldn't have been able to say anything good about what's going on right now. And then they go into a lot of things which, pose problems for him. Now, we are going to publish this article. I don't want to take the time to go into all of this. But be it as it may, there is still a meeting, maybe it's happened by now, I don't know, where President Trump is going to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. And they will be talking about the tariffs between China and Russia. And according to the Independent, I believe it was, they said that is the most important meeting of them all, insofar as what the outcome is going to be. Now, if they can't agree on anything, then what we have is a huge tariff of $250 billion imposed on Chinese goods, which the Chinese are not going to like. So we'll see how that goes. And again, the relationships, that's the point I want to get to here. The relationships between, let's say, the United States of America on the one hand, and the rest of the world on the other, and I mean the rest of the world, is going worse and worse. It's getting worse and worse. But I still will say, and I'm going to say it here from the pulpit, and you can quote me later, with all the things going on and all the accusations being made now by the Mueller investigation, and now suddenly Ivanka Trump and President Trump's son are being implicated as well, and all the other things which the former attorney now admitting that he has lied to the FBI or the CIA, whatever it was. President Trump is going to stay President Trump and is going to be reelected. It's not going to be any impeachment. Mark my words. He's going to stay in power. I'm absolutely convinced of it. Now, there's also one other interesting piece of information I'd like to pass on to you. You heard all about the Alaska earthquake, but the Week wrote it on December 1, that the 7.0 magnitude earthquake that caused serious infrastructure damage in and around Anchorage, Alaska on Friday, has been attended by at least, in fact, it's even more than I remembered, 193 other quakes in the state over the course of just 2 days. 193 aftershocks and maybe even earthquakes prior to the 7.1. And the only reason why this earthquake didn't cause as much damage as it could have caused otherwise is that this big one was likely muffled by its depth of around 25 miles below the Earth's surface. But think about it. What if another earthquake strikes, whether it's Alaska, whether it's Los Angeles, San Francisco, the famous big one? It's not going to be that deep under the ocean. I mean, the damage which is going to cause it is just beyond imagination. Well, you know, we all need to do our part. We should be prepared. I mean, yes, an earthquake kit would be good, or at least the material which would be part of the earthquake kit. And, you know, it would be wise to do that, frankly. We know a big one is going to come. Now, we know we have God's protection. But at the same time, the Bible makes it very clear. There will be earthquakes bigger and bigger and bigger and stronger as time progresses. And so we need to do our part. Now, I found also very interesting another piece of information, and that is, you all heard about the fact that the border between Mexico and the United States was temporarily closed, just for even less than a day, because of the migrant caravan and the situation there. But have you thought about the economic consequences? Now, that was something which was interesting to me. The Washington Post wrote on November 26 that the economic impact of Sunday's border closure, even for just a day, was felt immediately by businesses just north of the San Ysidro crossing that depend heavily on customers from Tijuana. The Chamber of Commerce stated that the closure resulted in a loss of, what do you think, blank in sales for the 650 businesses, as 93% of the customers arrived from Mexico. This day alone, just this one day, resulted in a loss of $5.3 million. The article goes on to say, of the roughly 7,000 vehicle passengers and 20,000 pedestrians who cross into San Diego each day through San Ysidro, about 30% work on the US side. Individuals crossing from Tijuana into San Diego spend $10 million to $15 million each day in Southern California at gas stations, restaurants, stores, and entertainment outlets. So to me, what was interesting is that these kind of aspects of decisions are hardly being considered, or maybe they are considered and then they are being ignored. But even something like that, as minor as it may sound, can have some impact on the American economy. And think about it, it's just not one day. Maybe it's going to be closed for a long period of time. Finally, I'd like to also bring to your attention a very thought-provoking article by The Week, which was dated November 30, having to do with the turmoil within the Catholic Church. And here's an author who actually announced that he left the Catholic Church, and then he got many responses from people, including the Cardinal Archbishop and other high-ranking Catholic persons, saying, why did you do that? Because the author is quite known. Why did you do that? You shouldn't have done it. It's premature. Now he says, because they said, that's absurd that you did that. So he says, what's absurd? The claim that of all the Christian churches, the Roman Church is the very best, the truest of all, the one most fully and rightly ordered through time. That would not only be the church of the great diabolical popes of the past, like John XII, Alexander VI, Boniface VIII, Leo X, but also the church that in recent decades has seen literally thousands of priests in countries across the globe accused of sexually abusing children, 271 of them in the Archdiocese of Boston alone, with untold numbers of bishops covering it up year after year after year. The number is untold, by the way, because we are still nowhere near knowing just how many members of the Catholic hierarchy around the world, all the way up to popes themselves, knew exactly what was happening and responded like self-protective bureaucrats out to protect a corporate brand from bad press. the following comment I felt was quite interesting. If you believe that Jesus Christ was resurrected, that he is the Son of God, and the second person of the Godhead, that his teaching tells us how the Creator of the universe wants us to live, then by all means be a Christian. But to believe that this particular church, of all the Christian churches in the world, is the one most fully and rightly ordered through time, above and over all the others, you cannot possibly be serious. But the truth of the matter is that we will see very soon a final revival of the ancient Roman Empire, the ancient Holy Roman Empire, a combination of church and state, the Roman Catholic Church and all the Protestant daughter churches, which at one time left the Catholic Church in protest, but which are going to come back. And only those who are looked upon as a sect, a cult, not being part of this new movement, those who are Jews anyhow, because they keep these Jewish holidays and the Sabbath and annual holidays and the dietary law, they will be the one who will be the outcasts. And they will be the ones who are going to be severely, and I mean severely, persecuted. That's what's prophesied. Our new Q&A, which is going to be published this week, will go into that in more detail. Let's be prepared for that. Let's not be surprised when it comes, because it's prophesied to come. And this author is absolutely correct. If people would only think that how a church like that could be God's true church, it's just ridiculous. But people don't think that way. They don't think that way because maybe they don't want to think that way. So let's keep our eyes and ears open and keep watching what's happening, because Christ tells us to watch and pray always so that we can be counted worthy to escape these things which are going to happen and to stand before the Son of Man when he returns.